This show is a proud member of the Nerdy Legion Podcast Network. Get more at nerdylegion.com. Enjoy the show.
This is Brightside Home Theater.
Hey, home theater nerds, welcome to the Brightside Home Theater Podcast, the podcast that focuses on the experiences we have in our theaters, the sights, the sounds, the scenes. I just made that up off the top of my head. Hey, I'm DJ. You can reach me on Twitter at BrightsideHT, or you can email me at brightsidehometheater@gmail.com, or you can check out the website, brightsidehometheater.com. I'll be talking about that in a few minutes. Might become prevalent pretty soon. I am also on YouTube, growing rapidly, and I'd appreciate if you're not already there, take a pop over, take a look. It's and you could subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. Each podcast goes up there in video form, as well as some how-to videos. I'm trying to reach out to the people that are new to home theater, so I figure that's a good place to start to bring in new viewers, listeners, everything like that. So hoping that works out. But also, I am on Patreon. And if you would like to support the podcast, you can go to Patreon. Thank you to my 13 Patreon supporters that I still have. I say still. But you can go to Patreon, search Brightside Home Theater, and I will pop up, and you can give a minimum of $1 a month donation, all the way up to whatever you feel like. And not necessary, absolutely not needed. I will do this as long as I possibly can, but I would appreciate any support that you guys could give me. Really appreciate that. Thank you very much. And let's see, on Twitter this week, we have HighDefPlus, and that's my buddy Justin over there. He's expanding. He's adding a plus too. We have Disney Plus, we have HBO Max. Oh, okay, I guess. But HBO HighDefPlus. So High Def Disc News has always been doing physical media, but with the world it is a change in there. So he's adjusting, and he's starting up High Def Plus. Check him out over there, High Def Plus. I think it's at HighDefPlus as well. Basically, same great stuff that he's always been doing, but now he's adding in streaming and everything like that. So check that out. Also, Kevin Day this week and Jordan Carpenter joined us on Twitter as well. Hey, thanks for joining. Thanks for checking it out, and enjoy the conversation. We have a blast over there on Twitter, making the best out of whatever a lot of people think isn't so great. Same with YouTube as well. Comments on YouTube have been fantastic. I've gotten a lot of great feedback, a lot of great suggestions, ideas, and questions and stuff. I might stop bringing it to the podcast, but we're going to get to a note on that in a second as well. So also, you could buy merch. You can pick up t-shirts, sweatshirts, mugs. Just head over to TeePublic and check out Brightside Home Theater. Just search home theater there at teepublic.com, and I'll pop up. Brightside Home Theater will pop up, and you can choose whatever you would like. I have a few different choices in styles of t-shirts with some sayings on them, so check those out. Really appreciate that. We have no movies or scenes this week, but if you have any suggestions of great scenes or a movie that you really love and you want to recommend it, send it on in, and I'll put it in this section of the podcast. But let's move on to listener comments, because we have a few this week. So first up, this came through email, but it's a piece of information about theaters promoting first ever cinema week to encourage movie going. This was in the Hollywood Reporter. This comes from Carl. And there was a quote in the article, and I really liked it. I wanted to read it to you guys. It says, "Nothing compares to the truly awe-inspiring experience of seeing a film on the big screen with sight and sound technology that cannot be replicated at home." Stated by Wanda Gearhart. Now, I take exception to that, especially on this podcast, and all the podcasts that we deal with here, Brightside Home Theater, AV Rant, HD Guys, we're doing everything we can to either expose how great it can be at home or how great it can be, because maybe you're not there yet, but you're listening, you want to learn, and you can have an unbelievable experience at home and sometimes it's better than the theaters. But I love what they're doing here. I love the idea that theaters are promoting a first ever cinema week, basically to try and get people to come back, because basically what it is all you need to do is you need to get them back in the door. That's it. And once they're back, they'll be like, I remember what I miss. I remember why I used to come here. Because when you take it away and you get used to not going, you get used to not going. And then you don't mind not being there, and all you remember are the negatives. All you remember is, people talking and their iPhones on and bare feet but stuff like that. But if they can get you back and they can give you a nice polished look, you'll get back in there and be like, wow, this was date night when I was a kid. This was what it's all about. The popcorn, the smells, the sights, the sounds, everything that they just said. It's like, yeah, maybe you can't get that at home. To me, it's the crowd, and we need crowds. We need to get back out in there and experience life with a crowd again and realize how much fun that can be. So very encouraging to see. Hopefully it works out for all the different theaters out there, because I'm really pulling for them, even though I do love my home theater. Next comment, Apple and Spotify are ready to take your money, your podcast money. And if you're a podcaster, you can start charging on Apple now. I read the article. I won't go into the full details. It was in Vulture. Again, this comes from Carl. He sends us great news to all the three podcasts. We all get the same news. I try to focus on the stuff that's a little bit more about me. But I get all of it, and I look forward to hearing what AV Rant and HT guys have to say about some of the different takes. Sometimes you'll hear us all talk about the same thing in a week, and you get 3 different takes. It's pretty cool. So thank you, Carl. I really appreciate that. But anyways, this one here, Apple and Spotify so basically, if you have a podcast, you could start charging money, and it's like Apple's going to charge you charge you $20 a year for this feature. And now I would be able to charge you for the premium version of Brightside Home Theater on Apple. Great. Fantastic. No, I don't like that at all. I want it to be free. I'm on Patreon. I get it. I would love to get paid for what I do, but I don't think I'm bigger than donations. That's all I want. I don't want to charge. I don't want to make money from Apple. I don't want to make money from Spotify. I'm not Joe Rogan. I can't do stuff like that. But what bothers me is that Apple, if you don't pay for my premium version, you're probably going to get a version with commercials in it. And that bothers me, because then less people will be doing it. Why do you want to hear it with commercials? I know YouTube kind of does that, but you have to pay premium. Maybe I don't know, whatever. But here's the good news. I'm ahead of the curve on this one. First time in my life, or my podcasting career life anyways, that you can get all of my podcasts, at least the most recent ones, within the actually up to a year now. I think we're coming up on a year since I started the website, which every single podcast goes up on the website in MP3 form, commercial free. It's my website. I don't charge you. That's what so you can always go there, and it's MP3. It's not the best quality sound, but actually the best quality sound is on YouTube, because that has, even the way we put out our podcasts at Nerdy Legion, we reduce the quality a little bit just so that we can, fit all of the podcasts on the network. So anyways, YouTube has the best sound. It's not as compressed as much as the MP3 that we put out. But on the website, commercial free, it's just me talking. How bad? You don't need top quality. You don't want me in CD quality. Trust me. But MP3 form on the website, you don't have to go to Apple. You can get my website anywhere in the world, and you could just listen there. So, if this works out, I don't know. Maybe, who knows? Maybe years from now, this is what I'll be doing. I'll be making money from Apple. But as of right now, I don't like the idea. I don't like what they're going to be doing to the podcast listener, which I am one of. So that means, I guess, guess what? Commercials are coming, and I'm not a big fan of that. Okay, moving along, Adriano tweeted, at BrightSideHT, hi DJ, I was recently given a Pioneer VSX D710S receiver. Problem is, it didn't come with a remote. Wah, wah. Any recommendations on where to get a replacement, or is eBay going to be my best bet? Thanks, and have a good one. Yes, eBay is going to be your best bet. I actually, when I got this question, I already replied to him, but I think that, yeah, that's the best bet, because there's other sites that'll sell you a brand new remote to go with this receiver, but it's not the exact remote. It's a, their version doesn't even say Pioneer on it. It's very hard to track down, but if you could find somebody selling one, an actual one, that's on eBay, which I did see a couple of them. That is the best bet. eBay is always the best bet for stuff like this. When you're upgrading your equipment, eBay, your old equipment. When you're buying new equipment, check out eBay first. Maybe you can find it there cheaper. I don't know. I'm not a shill for eBay. I use eBay to sell my equipment here and there when I upgrade, but and speaking of which, Carl sent us some emails this week about the new Sony's coming out and some reviews for it. Very excited reading the reviews. We're going to get more into that because I am this close. Oh, so close. I think I'm doing it. I'm going to pull the, I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to upgrade my projector. I'm going with the new Sony against Rob's best wishes, but he wants the JVC, but I'm going to compare it. Dare I say, if things go well this summer, maybe I'll actually get a hold of a JVC and compare it to the Sony. I don't know. I would love to try that. That would be a fun experience in my room. So, all right, emails this week. We have a bunch from Carl. Apple sued for terminating account with $25,000 in it. $25,000 of media in there, and they terminated the account. And this sent, we had conversations, all the home theater guys here, we back and forth in the emails talking about, oh, well, yeah, if you lose your content here, that's why physical media is better. You own it. Lee was saying how I want to have that. You cannot take that from me, or you own a copy of it somehow, some way. But any of this streaming stuff, and Rob has warned about this for years, like they could just pull the plug, because other companies have. We never thought Apple would do anything like that. So seeing this kind of scares a lot of people that are really into the streaming world. Denon coming out with their HDMI fix. Listen, I'm sure Rob, he sent out a few tweets on that. So over at AV Rent, they're going to have a blast with that one this week, I am sure. Let's see, what else did he have? Choosing safer activities. That one. Okay. And a few for next week, because I'm recording later. So I'd like to save a few. All right, let's get to the big one. Woo! We've got some information. And this information comes from Clara. Thank you, Clara, at Clara B. Russells on Twitter. She replied to my question last week about suggestions, coming up with suggestions for the podcast to, help me grow, help the podcast grow, help me grow as a podcaster, not just the medium, like me growing at my audience. Me growing as a podcaster. And that's really what I was going for. And she nailed it. Okay. So here's the question, or here's what her first reply. At Brightside HT. Okay, well, you asked for it. Here are my suggestions. This will be a thread. Before I start, you're doing a great job, and I love your enthusiasm. It's what draws me to the pod. On to the suggestions. Now, let me pause here for a moment, because I'm like, when I read it'll be a thread, I'm like, oh boy, what did I do wrong? And this is their textbook. Let's start off with the good news. I love your enthusiasm. That's what everybody says about me. I love your enthusiasm. Thank you. But now on to the negatives. So here we go. She isn't negative. She was great. 1, give a heads up as to what you're going to be reviewing well in advance, so that people can make an effort to watch those. Kind of like a movie club. A lot of times a pod comes out and I haven't seen the movie yet. Great idea. I've had that idea. I am trying to execute said idea. If you remember back in December, I actually started making trailers because I was a little bit ahead. The problem is it's very hard for me to get ahead. If I get a little downtime, I take it. But then what happens is like I end up doing these podcasts on a weekly basis. I need to take time to let them ramp up and build up a bunch of them. Then I could tell you, like, for instance, I'm obviously Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is this week. What if I was working on that 4 weeks earlier and I could tell you this one's coming out great. I can't wait for you guys to hear it. I'm efforting to get there. The problem is there's going to be a lag time and I'm afraid to do that. It's a little early in my podcast life here. I'm still trying to grow, and I don't want people tuning in for the first time being like, I swear to God, I'm going to talk about stuff, but next week it's going to take time for me to build that up because once I get into a movie like Spider-Verse here, I just love it, and I just like to analyze it to death, but that takes time, and if I take too much time, I lose it. I would have to take like 4 weeks off to get 4 podcasts in the bank and then work from there. And I don't want to do that. So I'm trying to figure out a way, but it is a great idea, Clara. I am working to get to that because that would actually make my life easier. So if I had some downtime, I would feel like I had 4 weeks headway, but got to get there, but I'm trying, and that's a great idea. Number 2, start a Discord. Ultimately, it would be a good place to build into a bit of a movie club that goes along with the podcast, as well as build the community and get continual feedback. This is an area where First Reflect can improve as well. Maybe you could partner with them. That would be a great idea. That is a great idea, not would be. I'd love to partner with Rob on that. The problem is I've had this suggestion many times, and I've talked to other guys that use it in podcasting, and I've gone from everything from it's a great idea, great way to build your audience, and all the way to it's a lot of work because you're always answering questions. You're always talking to people until you can build enough of an audience in there that you could step away and let the audience talk, and then you jump in. So that kind of scares me because I'm doing a lot already, and it doesn't mean I won't do it. It just means that I need to get ahead of some stuff. I need to get a hold of stuff and be able to, like, even just doing videos like this. I've added a lot of work to myself and it's not a bad thing. I'm just saying I've added a lot of work, and eventually I'll be able to, I'll streamline this effort in this work and be able to do it quicker, faster, better, and then then I'll pick up something else that will slow me down. So maybe Discord will be the next thing, but another great suggestion. 3, I think the format of some quick housekeeping news followed by no spoiler review popcorn followed by spoilers and specific demo scenes is good, but it does need editing. Housekeeping news tends to run long for what you're really saying. I agree. And here we are, I'm drawing this out as well. But I think, Clara, right here, with everything Clara's saying, I think is important. I'd love to give you guys the feedback that I am receiving so that you guys can understand and we can all talk about it. And that's going to come up in a second. But at the same time, I am trying to be quicker and more concise. And believe it or not, I've gotten better. Even my friends have said that to me. They're like, you don't drone on as much as you used to in normal conversation outside the podcast because I'm trying to get better at it. So we'll see. Maybe I will keep efforting to improve that. Thank you for number 3. Number 4, add specific timestamps of your favorite scenes for demos to YouTube if you can. Eventually, maybe it gets made into a wiki or Google spreadsheet. People love to find demo scenes. This is something your future Discord friends can contribute to also. Great idea. I will try to do that. I maybe put a timestamp next to the timestamp. That is a great idea. I will see if I can do that and how much actually work it will come someday. I will say that. 5, maybe unpopular, but there's a bit too much focus on Cape Bleep and other dumb blockbuster movies for my liking at times. I think mixing it up and having some more diversity in types of movies would be good, especially as we get more into 4K releases. I get it. I understand, Clara. I get it. These are the movies I love, though. These are the movies that bring that passion out of me. It doesn't mean that if I go and watch, like even a movie like Unbreakable, that's one of my favorite movies of all time, or any of the M. Night movies. My theater was designed around an M. Night home theater. All of that stuff. They're not necessarily home theater movies, and I try to, but that's why I haven't done them. I thought Morgan last week. I didn't think it was going to be a home theater movie, but I did it, and it really kind of lent itself to that. Comedies. I don't want to talk about comedies. And even though the picture might be good, there's a ton of websites that'll talk about your picture and the picture quality and the black levels and stuff like that. I want to talk about the experience. Now, doing Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that wasn't really a home theater movie, but the music kind of lent it to that. So that's why I could do that one. And Pulp Fiction, I would love to do Pulp Fiction. But that one there, again, it'd be a lot of, okay, here's the music in this scene. It doesn't really, the flow I don't think would be there. Doesn't mean I don't love those movies. And I try to mix it up as much as I can. Moulin Rouge, definitely coming down the road. The Greatest Showman, another one that'll be coming down the road. These are all movies. They aren't, your dumb blockbuster movies. And I agree with you. I'm not offended at all. I get it. They're dumb blockbuster movies. They're called to say it nicely, we call them popcorn movies because you just eat popcorn and don't think about anything. But these are the movies that bring the passion out of me big time. That's why I got into home theater. I'm a tech guy. I love the tech. I love what we can manipulate in this square space that we're in our home theaters. And that's what really brings this out of me. So I'm not offended. And I do try to diversify as much as I can. All right. 6, the featured theaters are a nice thought, but I think it adds nothing on the podcast other than taking up time. Can't see it in your car anyways. Maybe as YouTube grows, that will be more worthwhile. It'd be better as a Discord thing. Not an invalid point. But I do like the idea that I'm doing that to help the podcast grow, but I'm also doing it for the listeners. If you have I know as a home theater owner, the first thing we all want to, if somebody asks us, hey, do you have a home theater? Boom. It's like pulling out pictures of your kids. You're like, here, look, I got pictures. And I just wanted an outlet for that. That's why I set up the website in the first place. Then I added the audio in that I spoke of a few minutes ago. But I wanted, because we love our theaters and we love to show them off, just like we love when people come over, you want to bring them into your theater so you can show them the capabilities you have. But at the same time, when you're out and about, you want to show it off. Well, now there's a website you can send your pictures in, and I'll talk about them here, and it's usually pretty quick. And if I don't have one, the podcast goes quicker for you, Clara. But I'm definitely not getting rid of that. I don't think it's a bad thing. And you're right. As YouTube grows and as I grow and get more, it's easier to follow along on YouTube. And hey, you can always hit the fast forward button. And she winds it all up saying, maybe I'll think of more later. Good luck. And thank you, Clara. Thank you very much. But there's more on this because Steve George at Legal Beagle OK coming to my rescue. He says, not sure I agree on most of that, DJ. I like the format as is, and if you're trying to build an HT community, which I think you are, the featured theaters and comments, etc. are a good thing. The intro stuff is as good as is. I may be biased, however. Thank you, Steve. And then Clara replies, yep. Just one person's opinion. That's the thing about opening it up to the peanut gallery. I think the featured theaters doesn't work well in audio format, but may in video. The comments are good when constructive, but give the cliff notes. Well, I failed on this one here because I'm not giving the cliff notes. So, and then Steve says, one of the many things I like about DJ and the podcast is the enthusiasm and his trying to be as inclusive as possible. DJ encourages everyone to share his passion, and it's infectious. I've got a lot of people I speak to on here, including DJ, as a direct result of the podcast. Thank you, Steve. But yes, I am trying to be inclusive, but at the same time, the home theater, the featured theaters thing, like I said, you're not wrong, Clara, in saying that it doesn't translate well to audio, but you can fast forward. And when you get home, if I said anything, if you didn't fast forward and I said something that sparked your interest, you can always go to the website, just check out the pictures. And now you'd be able to go on YouTube and just jump to that featured theater on YouTube and be able to see the pictures there as well. So I agree with you. It doesn't work in audio, but maybe you're going to hear something like I said, that's where I found out about the Zapiti, and I absolutely love my Zapiti. So maybe someday somebody's listening to that one and they go, what's a Zapiti? They go home, check out the website, and they look and they see, hey, that's something they're interested in. So it works for everybody, I think. And like I said, that's what the fast forward button is for. But Clara, thank you very much. I've droned on long enough. Let's move it along to featured theater. And this week we don't have one. So you don't have to listen to me drone on about a featured theater this week, Clara. But if you would like your theater featured, email me some pictures of your theater and a quick description or a long description, and we'll talk about it here. And you can check out all the other theaters at Brightside Home Theater. Click on featured theaters and you can check them. I have like 20 something of them so far, which is way more than I thought I would get. Honestly, when I started, I didn't think I'd have that many listeners. And never mind that, I've got 13 Patreon supporters. Those 13 people out there willing to pay me. So look at me go. All right, let's move along to this week's featured movie. Brightside. Yeah, okay. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse 2018, the 4K and the 3D version. The image I have up here, it's the package that came with everything. It had the Ultra 4K and the 3D. Absolutely love this movie. Let's play this trailer, and then you're really going to get into it. I had so much fun doing this.
This morning I woke up in a fortress of distortion. I'm at war with my emotions. I'm coming home now. I'm coming home. Right where I belong now. Right where I How many of us are there?
This movie has it all. Absolutely has it all. It has story. It has a picture. It has sound. It has picture through the roof. It has a fantastic 4K picture. It has a fantastic 3D picture. In the 3D, you get the DTS master audio. Fantastic. The 4K, you get Atmos. All of that and a touch more clarity, more separation. Let's get back to the picture. The 4K, the artistry, the dots for shading that they used, the contrast, the highlights, the vibrancy, the depth of field. Yes, depth of field in 4K on this movie looks fantastic. Okay. It's just so, the way they use the lighting on a animated feature, it created that bit of separation. And when you go to the 3D, you get that much more separation. But it's not as bright in 3D. The 3D is obviously, that's the nature of 3D. It's a little bit dimmer, not as bright, but you get that depth of field that you just can't get with 4K yet. But unbelievable. The sense of clarity in each one is different, but better. So it's hard to explain because 4K is a little bit more clear, but in a different way than it's more clear in 3D. So my recommendation picture wise is, if you have the capability, experience both. It's very hard to pick. I I went back and forth on this movie, back and forth and back and forth. Pretty much every scene that I'm reviewing, I went back and forth on 3D to 4K. If I had to pick, and I've already done all my reviews for my scenes, I always do this part after the fact so I have a good idea of everything. I'm going to tell you right now, I think 4K wins. And that's tough for me to say because I love 3D. But the 4K is so bright, it's so great. And the 3D, if I'm going to give them a score of 100, the 3D is 99.5. It's not that far off. It's just not as bright. But if you sit through this 3D movie, there's separation there that you just can't get with the 4K. But then in the 4K, there's some clarity there that you just can't get in the 3D. And like I spoke of before, the dots, the opening scene that I'm going to talk about, and the dots that they use for shading, that goes way back into comic lore. And that's how they shaded stuff because of newsprint and stuff. Really cool. And those dots, they translate all the way to the set of Air Jordans the pair of Air Jordans you can buy. You know you have the right Air Jordans when the shading on the side of the Jordans has those dots in it. So check that out. The sound in this movie is awesome all the way through. Reference level. This movie, picture 4 boxes of popcorn. Movie's getting 5 boxes of popcorn because it has an unbelievable story to go along with it. And the sound is getting 4 boxes of popcorn. The 4K Atmos has that touch more detail than the DTS Master Audio has. They're both very dynamic, both very creative because that's what they used. But there's just more discrete separation throughout the room in that 4K Atmos track. Really, really great. 54 timestamps is what I the most I've ever had doing a movie. Now, when I go back through, some of them get taken out because they're a little bit redundant. 54 timestamps I started with. That's what I started with. This movie is a tremendous home theater experience, either in 4K or 3D. 4K, super clear picture. 3D, super clear picture with more depth of field, slightly more depth of field. DTS, very dynamic. Atmos, just a touch more dynamic. Every minute of this movie could be an entire podcast. I could break this movie down. Look at the length of this podcast. But I try to get through each scene as quick as possible, but they are all great. Every single one of them. The artistry of both the picture and sound design make this a must own. But of course, the story as well. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the home theater experience. So let's get to that. The popcorn is popping. Here we go. Let's get to it. At the opening and right from the jump, we get a 1-minute sound extravaganza in this. It's fantastic. It builds right from the jump. We get this crazy transition into a new universe. And it starts right away with the deep vibrating bass with the Sony logo. But what I want to talk about first is the images, because we've got all this talk going on about the multiverse and between both DC and the MCU. Everybody's talking about expanding their universes. And this is one of the first movies that really brought us into that and exposed basically the general public to what comic book fans have known about for years. And they opened this up right away with the image, with the Sony image on very first thing they did was show you that we're going into a different universe. And what I thought was cool as an artist, as somebody that has studied this stuff and is fascinated by comics, that is, because I can't draw simple. And I can't keep things simple. I'm trying. But look at how complicated I got this one scene. So we open up with the Sony logo, but if you're on YouTube and you notice, I have just basically the opening Sony logo. It's small in the center of the screen. But what you do from here is go in and look at the center little highlight that's coming out from the O. And if you notice on your screen, if you're not on YouTube, do this on your TV at home. If you notice on that screen, it's stylized. That highlight isn't just smooth. It's all little dots in a grid pattern. And immediately, with the first time I saw this, I'm like, oh, I know that, because that's a style that they used in comics for shading. And it was a very simple thing. Like, you literally just copied it over, and it's because of print, and things were the way they could print it. They could print those dots. And if you made the dots bigger, it made it darker. If you made them smaller, it created a smaller sense of highlight. So it was a stylized way for many, many years ago to highlight and shadow things, and they bring you in right away into the universe in this way. The next frame from here, or next frame that I have up, now the Sony logo is getting that pixelation in it, and they're slowly bringing you in. And if you watch this opening 1 minute scene, they slowly bring you into this new universe, which is Miles' universe, the animated universe. They're bringing you from our universe into an animated universe, which I thought was fascinating. I thought it was cool. I thought it was, the entire movie is about multiple universes, right? About multiple Spider-Men. But here we are right here. We are being brought in to an animated universe, and they did it with the imagery of in just the logos alone. The next frame I have up, now we have that, I think it's Columbia Pictures, I believe, with the woman standing. But if you focus in on the rings that come around the light, even those, they have that stylized highlight now. Nothing is, or parts of this image are smooth, but parts of it are stylized in that comic shading. Also, if you look at, you keep going and you see now the complete Columbia logo, but now they're throwing on the different images on top of that woman there standing. They have different images, different versions of it, and it's all just in the noise, the sound going with this. It's crazy. It's going tick, 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 and the music in the background is ramping up. And you're just right away, you're just getting right into this movie just right from jump. And here on YouTube, I have, it's a character of a comic, cartoon girl, cowboy girl or whatever, cowgirl, and she's shooting the guns. And I think one of them, if I look close enough, I think one of them is actually like a space gun. It looks like a little bit. But then we get complete change in this Columbia logo. It's crazy looking. It's all like completely, the entire thing is stylized. We're going 100% all the way in to Miles' universe here. And anything, basically they're introducing you saying anything goes. And obviously the popcorn's popped, so we know we're in spoilers here. And we have a pig. So anything goes. And they're open to anything in this movie. I was just going to make an inappropriate joke, but I won't. It comes up later. So, but anyways, the next frame, that we get into the Marvel logo now, and that is stylized, and everything as this 1 minute introduction goes on, the sound in the background is even more like ramping up. The entire thing is getting you all pumped up, all jazzed up. As you could tell, I'm sitting, I just watched it. And I'm sitting, I'm so excited about this movie just because I just did this one scene. And the entire idea of this movie coming at you about multiple universes, and in this 1 minute, they've introduced us into multiple universes just by the way they flash things over and over and over in all of these different scenes. And in 3D, all of those layers are staggered across your screen, like in front of you. So it gives an added dimension that you just don't get in 4K. But in the 4K, it is really, really bright. It is really good. And the Atmos, it does offer a different degree of clarity. And I think it's funny because the 4K is brighter. It offers a different degree of clarity as well. But I got and that's why I say different degree of clarity, because the 3D offers a different degree of clarity, because now you have a dimensionality separation, if that's even a term. I think I just made it up, and couldn't be a more appropriate movie. Dimensionality, whatever. I don't know. But It looks really great in 3D, but I can't even, it's hard. Maybe by the end I'll decide, which I prefer. But this opening scene, it is absolutely demo material, 3 boxes of popcorn. It has everything you could ask for in a movie, in a scene. It has the sound, and then it finally ramps up, ends with that little stamp approved by the Comics Code Authority. And it's that little stamp in the middle, and it's basically saying, even just that little stamp on the screen is saying, you're in. Here you go. We're into this universe, but they hit you with that bass. They hit you with that boom, and then, there's just more to come. All right, let's move along, and we'll get to this scene right here at 1:55. I called this 3 panels. In this scene, we have 3 panels across the screen. Creative name I gave it, huh? In 4K, everything is super vibrant. It looks fantastic. But in 3D, the comic in the center of the screen is coming out at you, and the other 2 obviously are slightly behind, and there's a little bit of depth to those scenes because obviously the comic is a flat image, right? So that's something coming at you. And then the little girl on the right eating the box of Spidey-Os, and then you have Spider-Man singing his Christmas song on the right-hand side. There's depth in those scenes, and having that flat center, it actually coming at you, that's what I'm talking about when I say it adds a sense of clarity there, a little bit more, depth of field, obviously, but it just a little bit more clear because you have that nice, sense of depth there, which you don't necessarily get in 4K, but you do. You kind of do, just not to the same degree, but the images are so bright in 4K. They looked so good. Even Spider-Man over there on the right-hand side in 4K, the detail in the tree that's next to him, the bright image of his costume, the Santa hat, the Spidey-Os on the left-hand side, and just Spider-Man's costume there, everything just popped. The wood grain in the table, the detail, it looks so good in 4K. It's so nice. But right at the 2-minute mark, the scene here, it jumps to the old-timey Spider-Man song, and it's like, Spider-Man, the old song there. And everything goes from that nice dynamic look, boom, right to a flat 2D image, which I thought was really enhanced in 3D. Because in 3D, this wasn't 3D. It was flat, just like it is in 4K. But even in 4K, it does look even more flat because the image is basically at the blue screen with the background. We all know the opening to Spider-Man, and if you're on YouTube, you're looking at it. But it just had such a nice transition there. And the music to go along with it is obviously really nice here because they changed to that old-timey music and kind of simplified the room for you. And it's even in the old 4x3 look for the old TVs. And and the sound even sounds like it's playing through an old TV, which I thought was really cool because you have this, you're in your theater, you're in your living room, you have this great sound system, and here you are listening to the crackling noise coming through your old TV. I thought that was fantastic. Moving on now, 4:33, back seat, 3 boxes of popcorn. This scene here, I thought was so much detail. So Miles is in the back seat of his dad's cruiser. And listen to this conversation and not necessarily what they're saying, but the placement of the voices. The dialogue here is clear throughout. And the image I have on the screen right now is you're looking through the windshield at his dad driving the cruiser, and Miles is in the back seat. But the voices, as this plays out, the voices change in volume and location depending on which voice is closer to the viewer. A great example is why I started with this image on YouTube is you're looking through the windshield and you can see, obviously you can hear his dad. He's more loud. He's louder because he's closer to you. Actually, the image that I don't have up right now is that the camera actually gets closer to the windshield and you're almost like in the car, but you're right on the other side of the windshield. The dad is like right there and Miles is in the back seat. And Miles is on the left-hand side and slightly further away. So his voice is on the left-hand side and sounds like it's slightly further away. But then the scene shifts and it goes to looking at Miles out the side window. And now the voice changes. His is more prominent and his dad is off to the right-hand side, slightly further away. I believe they even added in the bit of tone there that he is looking ahead and not being like, if I'm looking right into the microphone right now, but if I turn my head and talk like this, it's going to sound slightly different. You see how, and it's like, they did that here. I mean, I don't need to do it in a podcast, but they did that here. And it's details like that I thought were great. And this scene is filled with them. This is just a good example when they're looking at Miles through the rearview mirror. Miles is right there in the rearview mirror, but then but his voice is coming from slightly behind. It's so cool. Lots of jumping around here, and that's why I gave it 3 boxes of popcorn. It's basically that, like, you know, when you first got your home theater and you were all excited and you put in a demo or something of the guy walking around the room, and this is going way back, but it would be like, now you can hear somebody, and he would walk around your room and you were so amazed by it. This is that on steroids, but it's done so creatively and so great all throughout this scene. I really, really enjoyed that. This next scene at 6:34, Dad, I love you. Another great example of what I just talked about. Only here, the dad's voice is spreading out around the room because this is the scene where he's trying to get Miles to say, I love you. But he's talking through the loudspeaker from the cruiser, and Miles is off to the left-hand side if they're looking from the long shot, but they do flip back and forth. But the one particular scene I really liked here was at exactly 6:30. Miles is on the left and his dad's cruiser is on the right. And so you see Miles right there. And that's the image that I have up on YouTube right now. And his voice is soft on the left-hand side of the screen. But then right away, the scene jumps in the mid-sentence. He says, I love you. And then the volume in his voice goes up when they're looking at him. Because he says, well, I'm sorry, he doesn't say I love you. He says, Dad, but you're saying, it's all one sentence. He goes, Dad, I love you. But without pause, without anything. I'm screwing it up here, but they edited it perfectly. And it was, Dad, I love you. But the I love you comes in really loud because the camera jumped to a shot right in front of Miles standing there. So you went from a soft sound for Dad on the left-hand side, and then bam, I love you is like right there, front and center on your screen. And it was really cool, but just think of that sentence. Just think of Dad and then the boom, I love you comes flying through. I thought that was really cool. And it even played really well in the DTS mix in 3D. A little bit more separation in the Atmos mix, but you're still getting a good mix on the DTS mix as well. But I did feel like it was a little bit more separation between the great ambient sound of the dad's voice reverberating through the room, and then you have Miles on the softly on the left. It was a little bit more clarity there. This next scene is one of my favorite scenes. At 11:40, it's called Artwork. And Miles this is when he goes into the subway with his uncle Aaron, and he's going to create the, spray paint the wall, that the wall is his canvas here. And I stamped this scene for 2 reasons. The sound is amazing, and the 3D here does add a bunch. First, let's talk about the 3D. When Miles sprays the screen, when he points the cans at you, the 3D here is fantastic because not only do you have the depth of field just with Miles before he sprays the screen, but when that paint hits the screen, that sets your baseline of where the screen is and everything in it. I thought it was a really fun way to to set this up and to demonstrate the 3D really, really well. And I didn't think it suffered as much from not being bright enough because the images on the screen were pretty bright anyways. They're in a darkened subway. So maybe that's why this scene maybe jumped out a little bit more. But there's also a nice depth of field, too, when you're looking at Miles on the wall, and it looks like you can reach around him. It looks like you could see the spray coming out of the can, the paint that is. I just thought it looked really good in 3D here. The 4K is nice. It just doesn't have that same depth of field to this scene in particular. But now the sound, super directional, even more so in Atmos. Listen to this scene a few times. At first, listen to the sounds. It's a nice scene with an ambient subway reverb added to the voices and a cool soundtrack. But listen closely. Miles' spray cans sounds pan around the room. Like as the camera moves, you could hear his cans moving around the room. Whether it's across the screen from right to left, because he's moving in broad strokes as you do with a spray can, or right to left to right. You can hear the cans because the camera shot has changed. And so that's what's changing it around the room. And the soundtrack, the music is coming from Uncle Aaron's radio for this scene. And the camera changes view, it changes the location so that the sound, the origin of the sound changes as well. The one really cool thing is that it's still echoey too. We have that reverb. But if the radio's on the right, the sound is stronger there. If it's behind you, it's slightly stronger that way, depending on where it is in the room. And what's cool about this scene is all of this is going on simultaneously. Oh, and the dialogue too. Miles and Uncle Aaron's voices are bouncing all around the room as the camera changes, right? So in summary, we have Miles' voice, we have Uncle Aaron's voice, we have spray cans, we have the music from the boombox, all shifting, all panning around the room simultaneously. And I say simultaneously because I don't know how to spell simultaneously in my notes, but luckily I just have to speak these things. I don't have to spell these things. And if you go to the YouTube, you'll see I spelled it SIMOTANIOUSLY. So I don't think that's how you spell simultaneously. Up next, words at 14 minutes and 24 seconds. Miles is walking down the hall and the voice in his head is so loud. We could see the word bubbles. I stamped this because of the 3D and how awesome it looks and how much more it brings the scene to life. But honestly, the 4K looks fantastic too. Great contrast, great highlights. And notice the group of girls on the left-hand side, as you're watching this scene play out, and how they're standing in shadow. And it's really cool how nicely they're lit, but not lit, if you know what I mean. Like the hallway has a nice bright look to it with the lights, but then there is areas of shadow, and the girls on the left-hand side have shadow over them, and it was really cool. The 4K looks fantastic here too, but I thought the 3D was really cool how it really popped, especially because we have the perspective of looking down the hall. We have the word bubbles, which are blocks, the in my head, wait, why is the voice in my head, wait, coming across the screen. Really, really cool. Next scene at 16 minutes and 40 seconds, panic attack. Kind of the same thing here. Miles has a panic attack and everything he knows, all the blocks of images are coming up on the screen and everything in the background is then blurred. And just the 3D here really looked great. The 4K looked fantastic too because it was so bright, but it just had that little bit extra in 3D. And hopefully someday we get there with the 4K. At 19 minutes and 57 seconds, spider sense. So Miles starts to get his spider sense here. And just before he sees Spider-Man go into battle, awesome bass blast here. Vibrate your room. Sound seems to emanate from front and work outward to the rest of the room. All the channels are utilized. The 3D is great, but the 4K with the extra brightness really helps this scene jump off the screen. Spider sense effects around the edges of the 3D are a little bit better. And the image I just put up on YouTube, you can see they have those little sharp lines coming in all around the edges, pointing towards the middle, all angled towards the middle. And in 3D, those really created a nice depth of field here. But throughout this scene, the 4K was really nice. The bright lighting that takes over the scene as each shot of his spider sense comes to him is way more intense in 4K in HDR. At 24 minutes and 36 seconds, the dimensions start opening. So the interdimensional portals are opening. A lot going on with this scene too. Lots of room shaking bass, but the creaking and sounds all around your room make you feel like your walls are about to crumble. The creaking sounds actually travel around the room too, almost like a counterclockwise direction at times. The 3D was really cool and added a lot of depth to the scenes that in 4K you just wouldn't even realize how layered the stuff really was. So that's one of those, like, you don't know what you're missing if you don't go back and forth. But the 4K, it was really bright, really vibrant, because they had a lot of that switching going. I'm trying to make the noises from the movie, but they had that switching going on that with that extra brightness. It's like, you're like, like, you know, I hope you don't have seizures, but this is why I say it's hard to pick one over the other. To be honest with you, I really think you should experience both if you have the opportunity to experience both. I think it's hard. It's hard to go back and forth and pick one over the other, but either way, you're going to get a great home theater experience. At 38 minutes and 30 seconds, web noises, ? I don't know what these noises are, but it's one of those details that I really love to talk about. So Miles is hauling the dead body, aka Peter B. Parker, out of the cemetery. And check out these sounds that are popping all around your room. They sound like web noises, but they're not. It's not like I can't even, I had it. I tried to imitate it, but it's like, but you hear it. But they're moving around your room, and it's part of the score. But it's over you, it's around you, and it's really cool, and it really gives you a real sense of being in an audible 3D space. I mean, there's a lot of other things going on here too, like from the cops yelling and the ambient noises, Miles' footsteps in the snow. But the sounds were really, these little sounds, they were a really cool detail, and they're going on over you. It was really, really cool. Check that out. At 44 minutes and 23 seconds, Ketchup. This one here this is a scene where the 3D really outshines the 4K. Because I'll be honest with you, I don't even know if you're watching this in 4K, if you're going to even notice this scene. It's a jump scene, and what they're going right from, they were just on the side of the wall. Miles and Peter B are talking, and Peter said, the last thing he says is, "We don't have a moment to lose," or whatever. And then they jump right to the scene, and Peter B is biting into a cheeseburger, and the barbecue sauce or ketchup or whatever squirts onto the screen, and it's right at like the bottom left of your screen. And in 4K, it just kind of looks like this brown, blurry, goopy stuff on your screen. But in 3D, those spots, like they grab you right away. You see it right at the bottom. Your eye goes right to it. And that's one of those little details here that I just don't think that you're going to get in 4K. And that's why I said this, like 3D adds an extra layer of clarity that you don't get, but so does 4K. It adds a different layer of clarity because it's so bright, so vibrant. The details are there, those little dots that I spoke of earlier that I absolutely love. The way they shaded this movie, the artwork in this movie. All of that really comes out in 4K, but then there's that extra piece in 3D. So again, I can't decide. You know me. And this next scene at 50-50, Liv, I gave it 2 boxes of popcorn. Peter B discovers who Doc Ock is, and she says, my friends call me Liv. But when the big reveal happens, I mean, we all knew at that point, because everything around here in the office or even her glasses are octagons. So no big reveal. But anyways, we get a really cool deep bass shot here when she's revealed, and nice and powerful that you can feel in your seat, a little bit in your chest, but also the sounds of the arms reaching around from behind Liv, who is center on the screen, then grabbing Peter B. But from here, Miles is trying to sneak off, and he's struggling with the computer while Peter B is struggling with Liv. And it's all going on around the room. So you're hearing Miles go on around, at different parts, depending on where the camera shot is in relation to the action. And lots of fun jumps from one side to the other, like the sound that is, because the camera will move and Miles is on one side, but now the camera moves, but now you're hearing him on the other. Great pans, and quippy dialogue is really clear because you have Peter B doing the textbook, Spider-Man dialogue here. It's just a really, really great scene. Next scene at 54 minutes and 21 seconds. Gwanda. I gave this 1 box of popcorn. I wanted to give it more, but it's only a minute long, and it's not normally a scene that would normally jump off the screen for most people. But when we get another big reveal here that Gwanda is Gwen and Spider-Gwen, and I'm a sucker for a great entrance, and one of the best entrances, I think, is, Wonder Woman coming in BVS. One of my favorite scenes, favorite entrances. The music played a lot into that, that music bringing you in. And they did, this scene here was very similar, not to the level of that Wonder Woman entrance, but I loved this entrance, and you can hear that music start to play in the background before she actually shows up. You hear that and you're like, oh, this is going to get good. Especially on second viewing, it's coming and you're like, oh, this sounds really cool. But for me, what was really cool also is, how much I love a great pan, and this entire thing starts with a great swooshing pan across your screen from left to right. So Miles and Peter B are like all strung up in a tree, and she comes flying in, and the image I have up on the screen is looks like a bird. It looks like a dove flying across the screen grab, because they blurred her going from left to right, and you get that great swoosh. And then the music as this scene plays out is really, really cool. And I love that the grace that they gave her battle style, the way she fights, that mix of martial arts and ballet, really, really nice, really cool. And a lot of great bass thumps here too, as she's fighting, kicking and punching, and the sounds that you get. And like I said, it all starts with that swoosh flying across the screen from left to right. And it's all about a minute long, but one of my favorites, and entrances that is. And that's why I'd like to give it more, but it's not like that fantastic of a scene, but I just thought it was a great entrance. Next scene's called Tentacles, and I gave this 1 box of popcorn as well. Liv and Kingpin meet out on the veranda. How lovely. That was nice. But pay close attention to her tentacles in this scene. Really, really subtle, but you can hear almost velociraptor-like sound, the noises that they make, reaching around the room. And if she grabs, she grabbed one of the henchmen off to the side, I believe it was off to our, at one time, if you're looking at the screen here, it's the henchman's off to your right rear, and maybe there's a sound there, but she reaches out, I think the first time, and it goes to the left side, and very subtle, but you can hear them moving and thinking, and because they almost like if you think back to which Spider-Man had him in, I think it was 2 with Alfred Molina, and they had their own minds. Like they'd look at him and they'd make noises and stuff, and they talk to his face. You had that sense going on here as well, even though way more stylized, but it really, really cool sound here. Next scene, another one of my favorite all-time favorites here, this screen door It's at 59 minutes and 58 seconds, and the group, you have Peter B., Gwen, and Miles. They're at Aunt May's, and it's very subtle, but very, very fantastic. If you can have a levels of fantastic, then this is way, way up there for me. So they're outside, and then now they're coming in. She's just said, all right, let's go to the bunker. They don't know it's a bunker, but that's what we're going to go. And Aunt May kicks open the screen door to the backyard to lead, Peter, Miles, and Gwen down to the bunker. The music is ramping up. The intensity is ramping up. The scene it's filled with both great dynamic sound, really cool 3D here as we go down the elevator. But what I want you to check out is that screen door. Right after Aunt May kicks the screen door open, the camera shifts to a shot of the group just behind the shed, or just walking to the shed, I mean. And check out the sound in your right rear, not necessarily the corner, but your right rear, like right over your shoulder, the sound of the screen door slapping shut behind them. I love that. Absolutely love that. That's insane, because if it's not, it's like, who does that? Why is that there? Who is that for? It's for us. It's for the home theater fans. That's who that's for. It's at home. I don't even know if you notice that, to be honest with you. Maybe you do, but it's flat. It's 2D. It's at the front of your room on your TV. So you don't know that screen door sounded perfectly like a screen door. Maybe they used the screen door from Seinfeld when Kramer put a screen door in. I don't know. But it sounded like the weight of a screen door snapping shut behind you for us. All for us. That sound was fantastic. That's why I gave it 3. I'm going to up it. I'm upping it right now. I gave it 2 originally. I'm upping it to 3 because it was that good to me. All right, let's take a breath. Whew, gotta relax. Okay, the next scene at 1 hour, 2 minutes, and 29 seconds, 3-way. Not what you think. That was the joke that I was going to make earlier, but it wouldn't have been appropriate because I didn't have time to explain it. But there's 3 panels across your screen. From left to right in the panels, we have Spider Noir, we have Penny Parker in the center, and we have Peter Porker on the right screen. And they all say at the exact same time, I was bitten by a radioactive spider, and then you have Peter Porker on the right side. He doesn't say spider, says radioactive pig. And they all, like I said, they all say it at the exact same time. And each one is given their own channel. Now, sitting in your seat, it sounds like they're each given their own channel, but they weren't. I got up, I replayed the scene over and over. I went across my room like 2 or 3 times. 2 at least. Maybe I came back across again for a 3rd time. But I listened to the scene and I listened to, Spider Noir with my ear up to the speaker, the left speaker. And I was like, okay, that's just him. And then you go to the middle and you just had Penny Parker. But there is a bleed in on each of them, but it's way more prevalent in each discrete speaker where it's supposed to be. I'd say Peter Porker was the most prevalent in his speaker. Really could barely hear any bleed from the other speakers. And I don't think it's bleed. It's just the way they're mixing it. But it's a really cool scene how they all speak at the same time, but you have to play the scene over and over for your brain to figure out that you're like, okay, now let's listen just to the left side of the room. So it's kind of a fun thing to do, to go back and forth on one of those scenes where you listen to multiple times and hear like, okay, now Penny in the middle and now Peter Porker on the right. Now let's go back across. So, all right, let's move this along. This next scene starts out at 1 hour, 4 minutes, and 40 seconds, and I called it Drums. And basically, it's the entire group, Spider Noir, Peter B., Gwen, Peter Porker, Penny, and they're all asking him these questions on what he can do. Can you do this? Can you do this? When you get hit, can you get back up? And it just keeps ramping up. But pay attention to the drums. It's like the snare drum or whatever. And it starts Spider Noir starts out the conversation, and it's at 104:40. And he starts out with the first question of what he did when he started out. And they're basically getting Miles to battle back, to fight back, to stand up. But the drums start out at the front of the screen, the front of the room over you a little bit. But then as the drums ramp up, they make their way over your head. There's a ton going on in this scene, but pay attention to those drums because it comes in right over your head. And then when the bass really ramps up, when Miles stands up and he's like, and you'd think he's going to be like, I got it. And he obviously he doesn't at this point. But the drums move back to the front of the room. I just thought it was a really cool detail to this movie that filled with tons of details. But check that one out. 1 hour, 4 minutes and 40 seconds. And that snare drum and how it moves, literally hovers over you in your room. And when it's really peaking, I felt like it was right over my head. It was really cool. And this next one, this one here is about the 3D versus the 4K. Probably the best example of the movie. Maybe I run into another one coming up, but I haven't talked about it like this yet, in depth anyways. So this scene is at 1 hour, 11 minutes and 9 seconds. And this is where the entire Spider gang, that's what I labeled this scene, is going to battle in Aunt May's living room with Doc Ock and her henchmen. And in 3D, it looked so nice. So the depth of field, I mean, you have the living room, the layout, you have all of the characters. And now's probably a good time to note, now that Peter Porker is in the movie, 3D really accentuated his 2D-ness as compared to the other characters in the movie. And I would say the same thing for Penny, because she's drawn more manga style, so she was a little flatter than some of the other characters as well. Even in this image here, or in this scene in particular, look at Peter B and how detailed and how shiny he looks and how more lifelike, I would say. And even then you go over and look at Miles and look at the detail in his eyes. The 3D really brings out that, the mask with the cutout in it. It really brings that out, the depth of looking into the eye openings there. That was really cool. Spider Noir, also flatter as well. I thought Gwen, I think she's more along the lines of Peter B, maybe a little between Peter B, the detail on him, and then you go to Miles, that maybe the detail in there, the level anyways. But the 4K in this scene this is where I think we are just so close to having passive 3D. And I really have my fingers crossed for this, for James Cameron, that is, to come up with. I'm hoping that's what these new Avatar movies are, is that he's developed a way that we can have passive 3D. No glasses needed, and we just look and we're blown away. I don't know how they can do it, but then again, I don't know how to make an iPhone, but yet I've got one. So who knows? But yeah, back to this scene here. Like I said, in 3D, it looks really great. The battle is really great. You have Dr. Octavius, Liv. She's got stuff going on. Her arms are reaching around. But the picture here is just, it's really, really nice. Really demonstrates how good 3D can be and how good 4K can be, because both of them do a fantastic job of creating that environment, that depth of field, because we're in that closed room, so you have a perspective to go by. Walls are further away, stuff like that. Thinking on a 2D image that you can create to 3D just by drawing it the right way, but then actually using the technology to pull out, the 3D, but also using the technology of 4K and the level of brightness, and how, like I said, like this image that I have on the screen right here, where Peter B is just so bright, and then he's got the Tobey Maguire costume on, so the highlights of the webbing on his shirt, because they're elevated, it's all brought out in 4K. Really, really fantastic. Now this next scene, let's get back into something that I really love, and that's sound. I love sound. Everybody knows that. So Anyways, so Uncle Aaron, that's what this one's labeled because he's, going bye-bye. At 1 hour, 13 minutes, and 50 seconds, bang. So Uncle Aaron and Miles are up on the roof, and this is where Uncle Aaron realizes who Miles is, who's the Spider-Man is, and it finds out it's Miles. And he pulls the mask back onto Miles' face because he's there to kill him for Kingpin. So he pulls the mask on, pulls the mask back onto Miles' face. He goes back, and the sound in the room basically goes away. Everything is gone. And you're just sitting there, and you see Uncle Aaron, like, pulling back away from Miles, like he's in shock. And like I said, everything goes quiet, very, very subtle, very quiet. And then, boom, I mean, the light on the screen goes, you get the big boom in the background. Blam, I think they write, is what's behind Uncle Aaron as he's being shot from behind, from below, by Kingpin. But the bass, the walls shook, everything. But it was that silence that comes up beforehand that just really makes you like, it just really shocks you, really shakes you, literally, figuratively, everything. Just a great scene. 1 hour, 13 minutes, and 50 seconds. What a bass shot you get out of that. And this next scene, more sound. We love sound. Okay, this next scene at 1 hour, 17 minutes, and 42 seconds, footsteps on the ceiling. I think there's a Lionel Richie song in there somewhere. But anyways, the group, Peter B, Spider Noir, Miles, Penny, and Spider-Gwen, they're on the ceiling of Miles' dorm room. And his roommate is sitting in his chair with the headphones on, and they're up on the ceiling/wall. And so their backs are on the ceiling, their feet are on the wall, and they keep moving back and forth across the room in the corner there. And they go from the left side to the right side and back and forth. And their little footsteps actually go from your left front corner back to the right rear. I thought it was fantastic. One quick little critique. Is that a word? Critique. In my room, it felt like the footsteps went a little too far down the right side of the wall. For a movie this detailed, maybe it's my system. It could be that, you know what I could be? I need front heights. That's what it is, because the front heights will make it stop right where it is. So maybe it's because I don't have anything between the right rear or my right side channel all the way to the front. So the only way they can get that sound there is to mix the front and the rears together. If I had front heights on the sidewalls there, right in that spot, bam, I'm in. Woo-hoo-hoo. Oh boy, I got to call up Rob, see what I got to get. Maybe an anthem or something. I don't know. Get front heights going here. Anyways, let's move this right along. All right, this next scene, this is super powerful. I will try to get through this scene, but it's at 1 hour, 20 minutes, 25 seconds. I labeled it Through a Door, and this is where Miles, he still has the webbing on his mouth, so he can't talk, but his dad shows up at his dorm room and talks to him through the door. And the conversation is super emotional, super charged. You just like, if you don't have a tear in your eye at the end of this one, woo! But let's talk about the level of detail that they put into the sound for this scene, this super powerful scene, to me at least. So what happens is his dad is talking through the door, and it'd be one thing to put, his sound on the left, the lack of sound on, Miles, his mouth is covered, so he can't say anything, but you put his sound on the left, a little silence on the right, and would be good. But the level of reverb that they put in and took out at different times and different levels of it. So the shot I have up here is literally, it's the split screen shot, but that's how they ended the scene, to show like right down the middle, Miles on one side and his dad on the other. But most of the time they're going back and forth between his dad on one side of the door and Miles on the other. And notice the level of reverb when they switch to the other side of the door, where Miles is looking at the door. So the way sound works, and if you listen to AV Rant, they'll explain it to you perfectly every single time. But the way sound, it's waves and it's vibrations, right? So if you're creating a vibration with your vocal cord and you're trying to talk through a door, literally the next thing that is talking to you, it's not that vocal cord anymore, it's the door. The door is vibrating for you to create that vibration for it to pass through or underneath the door or whatever. So you're getting that little bit of a reverb there. And they did that here. When they go back to the other side of the door, his voice is more clear. There's still a little echo because he's in a bright sounding hallway, but it's not the same level of reverb, to the point that when they talk to him further away, you get one level of reverb. When the camera goes directly on his face, you get another level of reverb or a little bit more clarity. But then when they go to the other side of the door, you get even more reverb. You feel like he's on the other side of the door. And it's directional because it sounds like he's on the left side of the room. But anybody can do that, right? But the level of detail that they put into this scene, I gave it 3 boxes of popcorn because, I mean, you have to watch this movie a couple times just to be able to get through this scene without like crying and understand. I mean, I don't want to get into it. I will. Here we go. So, but the level of detail that they put into this is fantastic. And it's just another reason this movie is it's got to be one of the best home theater movies ever. It really does. It really does. But let's move along here. So at 1 hour, 22 minutes and 20 seconds, ramping up. Great quick scene here. And this is where Miles still in the dorm room, still all wrapped up in the webbing. He's still got the webbing over his mouth. And now he's, inspired by his father's speech, discussion with him, and just ramping up. Here he goes. He's about to get his powers, and the way that the sound just builds here and it just grows in your room and expands throughout the room. It's fantastic, and it grows with the scene too. It's the level of detail here in the scene, and it's even when you get into looking directly into his eyes, where you see the sparks going in his eyes in 3D. There's a depth there, like his nose, the bridge of his nose is raised, his eyes are recessed, but in 4K, the HDR really brought those sparks out in his eyes. Looked really cool, really bright, jumping right off of the screen. And then the sparks going down his back into his hands. Everything here, and like I said, the sound just growing in the room, and you can hear those sparks, and we're all building to that big boom at the end that ends up just shaking the room. But like I said, the sound is just growing in your room until, as he's growing with his powers here, as it expands into him and out of him, and then everything just explodes. You get the big shaking room bass, and it's like the bright lights on the screen, and then boom, everything separates. His hands come apart, the chair goes flying. You get that nice little sound of the chair landing on the right side of the room. Everything kind of goes quiet, but pay attention to his hands too. Right off center left of your screen, you can hear his hands spark one more time just as the scene's ending and he's walking away. You hear that. Really cool. Lots of, very dynamic for a very quick scene. It was probably 1/10 of the length of my description of it, but really cool. 1 hour, 22 minutes and 20 seconds. Definitely check that one out. All right, up next, trying something new. 4 boxes of popcorn here. This is let's just get to it. I hope this doesn't get me kicked off of YouTube if I have to edit this out, but I'm going for it. I'm going to give this a shot. So let's get to this next scene at 1 hour, 22 minutes, 48 seconds. What's up, danger? This scene here, I talk about entrances. This is insane. This is up there with Wonder Woman's entrance. Here we are, introduced to Miles, not Miles anymore. Here he is. He's becoming Spider-Man. He has his powers. The bass in your room is incredible here. The reverb in his father's voice coming through here. The voices, the 3D, everything here is fantastic. The reflection of his face on the wall, the spray can, unreal. The bass right now that you're listening to, I love this. The song, the lyrics are incredible. Watch this part here at 1 hour, 22 minutes. I don't even know the timestamp we're looking at. This is where he goes right off the wall. The image that we've all seen, him flying, he's going down, but the image is inverted, so the city is on top. Those panels go across your screen from left to right, boom, 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 just like they just did. It's an unreal scene. I mean, if you weren't a fan of Miles before this, I don't know. I mean, if you're not now, it's insane. That woo was awesome in the room. Unreal. He ran across the windows there. The sounds you just heard, dunk, dunk, dunk. They go across your wall. They go across your front screen from left to right. And that's where he lands on the rooftop right there, and it all just quiets out. Really, really nice. Really cool. Love that scene. Absolutely. I don't know if I'm allowed to do that sound. See what happens. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. 4 boxes of popcorn. That track, that everything, him being introduced, him getting his powers. Awesome. Awesome scene. Definitely, obviously, check that out. But moving on from that, let's get to this next one at 1 hour, 27 minutes, 45 seconds. I don't talk enough about the bass in this movie because it is fantastic, like everything else in this movie. But this one here is called Another Portal. And it's a countdown coming up right before this scene here where we get the nice big boom because Kingpin's opening another portal to bring his wife and son back through. And you get this nice big boom after a mechanical or computer voice saying 3, 2, 1, boom. And then that bass resonates throughout the room for a good 30, 40 seconds into this scene as it goes on, because we're getting into the big battle here at the end. Lots of great stuff that's going to go on. I'll snap through a few of these as we get through, but this one here I just thought was really cool to mention the bass because I'm not really talking about it enough because this movie's so detailed. It's so complicated but simplistic, and there's just so much to this movie that to go through this movie and go, hey, here's another big boom. So I don't know, but this one here was really good, like all of the others in this movie. But you had that, and then as the scene plays out, we get another nice big boom. And like I said, it's resonating through this scene, and then we get into the big battle. And at 1 hour, 29 minutes, 19 seconds, we get Miles. And there he is, looking at him. He comes into the scene. They're all battling Doc Ock here, and he comes in invisible, but the music is ramping up. You can hear his theme music coming in, and she doesn't know what's going on, but everything around the room, you're hearing the noises from him come into you from around the room. It's fantastic. The imagery is fantastic. He's not there, but his webs are coming out, and there's at one point, the webs actually come from front center and swing fly right by you to the rear. The little whip goes right by you. It's a fantastic. Another great introduction of Miles here. And then, of course, Peter B's like, you're doing it on command. And it's really, really great scene. But the sound and then how they kind of go to a 2D image on the screen as Miles is coming at you, as he's becoming visible to everybody. And that's the image that I have up on YouTube. I thought that was great because the 3D look, and then in 3D or in 4K, this scene looks fantastic. All of the characters are displayed in their D-ness, whether it's 2D like Peter Porker or almost 2D is what Penny is because of the manga style. But then the others have great 3D, great dimensionality. I'm making up words left and right here, but they made up a lot of stuff for this movie. And this, juxtaposition of Miles coming into reality, coming into visibility, but he goes for a second there, the screen goes to a flat image of just a 2D image of him coming. It's like a watercolor, but really bright, really vibrant. This particular frame that I'm showing on YouTube is really enhanced in 3D because they kind of went to that 2D look for just a split second. And I can't say enough about this scene, which is, again, very, very quick scene. And in this next scene, at 1 hour, 31 minutes, and 53 seconds, we get even more bass. We get 2 boxes of popcorn, quadruple shot. This is where Gwen, Miles, and Peter all take their shot at Doc Ock. And first it's Gwen with a punch, which is really nice shot of a punch right there. Nice bass. Then Miles hits her right afterwards with a little bit deeper bass in that one. And then Peter comes in right behind with the kick, which is even deeper bass. And then to wrap it all up, Miles and Gwen punch her together, double shot, and the deep room rattling bass off of that one. Really, really cool. It goes right down the line really quick, and check out the level of bass in each one. They're each a little bit more. Really, really cool shot there. That's why I gave it a double box of popcorn for quadruple shots. Double box of popcorn. I've never called it that. 2 boxes of popcorn. Really, really great scene, really great bass, and nice detail to the level of bass. Really, really cool. Check that one out. But from here, let's just jump right to 1 hour, 36 minutes, and 26 seconds. And that's where we get into Kingpin, the battle with Kingpin. It's the big face-off at the end. This entire ending is fantastic, but there's so much to it. Even building up to the Kingpin battle, everything, all of them going back to their dimensions. There's so much going on. But at 1 hour, 36 minutes, and 26 seconds, that's when the Kingpin battle starts. And I gave this, from here on out, it's basically 3 boxes of popcorn, everything that can possibly happen. But what's great is you have all the dimensions coming in. There's so much mixture going on, interdimensionality, or I can't even say the words, but like even the train going by, that goes over your head and whizzes by. I can't even talk about each individual thing. There's so many different things, but like just quick examples of that, like the train going by, the 3D, both 4K and 3D have something to offer here. The 4K looks fantastic. The neon, the little bit, everything going on. There is a sense of 3D in the 4K, but then the 3D that you get, like when Kingpin looks at his wife and daughter coming back and they're snapping back and forth between dimensions, and the different images that you get, the depth, because we're inside the subway at the time. So you have that perspective view that gives you that sense of 3D, even in the 4K version. But now we have a level of 3D with the 3D version that they keep popping in at different depths inside the subway, that is really enhanced. But the 4K really enhances this because of the neon and the lights at the top of the subway, really the fluorescent light going down the middle of the subway, the sounds going on around you, the things snapping back and forth, the score. It's absolutely insane. It's just it's a tour de force of sound. But then let's bring it down a little bit to the description and describe Miles's black painted suit. And if you forget, what happened is that's the red suit, but he painted it black. So you get that look, you get the texture of the suit coming through the paint of the black paint on that suit. And what's cool here is later on, you see Miles right up against the black of Kingpin's suit, which is 2D jet black, absolute absence of color, which is what black is, no color whatsoever. But the frame that I'm using here on YouTube doesn't do it justice, but in 4K it does. In 3D, not so much. You get a separation of Miles against the suit, but not the depth of detail that you get in the 4K version of the little lines that are in the suit. And then as the scene progresses, you get a close-up of Miles's face, and you're looking, I mean, the shimmer of the eyes in the center, but the detail on his mask, on his face, the little lines from the webbing that's in the suit, and then, but it's all highlighted on the blackness of his suit. Really, really fantastic. And then we get the shoulder touch.
Hey.
Awesome. Awesome. We get that. The hey, going back to his Uncle Aaron and bringing that, he taught him this, and you get that cool hey, and then the ching, and just absolutely fantastic. Bringing this movie all together, everything coming back. Just a fantastic movie. I'm going to end it here. I absolutely love this movie. I think it is one of, if not the best. I'm having trouble right now, but wicked recency bias. I'm watching these scenes back to back, 3D, 4K. I've had so much Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse this week. Really, really enjoyed it. I can't think of another movie that is better in the home theater. I'm not saying it's the best. Maybe there's something equal to it, but everything that this movie brings you, you can't beat it. You really can't beat it. It has story, it has sound, it has unbelievable 4K, and it has unbelievable 3D. Can somebody name another movie that does all that? I don't think so. I really don't. So that's why I got to wrap it up here. We're going to wrap it up with that hey, because that's really cool.
Hey.
And that'll do it. And we'll wind up. It's been a long podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for listening. Thank you to my 13 patrons. Thank you to HighDefPlus, Kevin Day, and Jordan Carpenter for joining us over on Twitter. And you can join us. You can check me out on Twitter at BrightSideHT. You can email me at brightsidehometheater@gmail.com. You can check out the website. We talked about it enough here. brightsidehometheater.com. And please, if you're on YouTube, hit subscribe. If you're not on YouTube, go to YouTube, hit subscribe. Really appreciate it. Hit that like button. I will see you next week. Thanks for listening. Now go push play. Hey, Fred. This has been a Hey Fred production with theme music by Jeff Bernhardt and Throne Vault Productions.